Hey everyone, this is your teacher Murray, and I want to show you a little story that I think you might find interesting. It's kind of funny, it's kind of weird, but it's a great story. Uh, so let's begin. This is Dan. This is Dan. His name is Dan. His name is Dan, D-A-N, Dan. And Dan works from Monday to Friday. From Monday to Friday. So Dan works from Monday to Friday. Dan does not work on Saturday and he does not work on Sunday. He doesn't work on Saturday or Sunday. He has 2 days off on the weekend. So he works from Monday to Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And he works from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. 9 in the morning until 5 in the evening. So 9 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Monday through Friday. So one day, one morning, there's the sun coming up. One morning, Dan is sleeping. He's sleeping. Sleeping. He's sleeping, sleeping, sleeping. And then he wakes up. He wakes up and he looks at his clock and he sees that the time is 8 o'clock. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. So it's 8 a.m. in the morning. And Dan thinks to himself, 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Dan is surprised. It's 8 o'clock. He's surprised. He's surprised. It's 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Dan starts to worry. He starts to worry. Oh no, oh no. First, he thinks, I have to work. I have to work at 9 a.m. Yeah, I have to work at 9 o'clock this morning. My work starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh no. Oh no, he thinks. Then he thinks it takes at least 1 hour to get to work. For Dan to get to his work takes at least 1 hour. And then he thinks, I'm going to be late for work. I am going to be late for work. Dan, oh no, he thinks I am going to be late for work. My boss will be angry with me. He'll be very angry with me. See the boss, is steam blowing out of his head, and he thinks I'm going to be too late. I'll be very late, and then my boss will fire me. You're fired. He says, I'll be fired. You're fired. My boss will fire me. Fired. Look how mad the boss is. You're fired. He will say, Dan, you are fired. Whoa. Oh, terrible. So he thinks, I better hurry. I better hurry. I better rush. I better hurry. Dan realizes that he has very little time and he has to hurry to work. So very quickly, from 8 o'clock until 8:10, Dan gets ready for work. First, he has breakfast. He eats a sandwich. There he is eating a sandwich for breakfast, and he drinks a coffee. He drinks a coffee. And then he quickly takes a shower. He quickly takes a shower. There's Dan taking a shower. Then he brushes his teeth, and combs his hair. Last, he gets dressed. He gets dressed. So he puts on his underwear and then he puts on his pants and then he puts on his shirt and then he puts on his belt. And last, he ties his tie, or he puts on his tie. He puts on his tie. So he does all of this in just 10 minutes. So I'm going to go through these again. He eats a sandwich. He drinks a cup of coffee. He takes a shower. He brushes his teeth. He combs his hair. He gets dressed. This is all gets dressed. He puts on his underwear. He puts on his pants. He puts on his pants. He puts on his shirt. He puts on his shirt. He puts on his belt. His belt. He puts on his belt. And he puts on his tie. He puts on his tie. He puts on his tie. So that's all getting dressed, and he's got to get ready for work. So it takes him 10 minutes. He gets ready in just 10 minutes from 8 o'clock until 8:10. He gets ready for work very fast. Then, once he is ready, he grabs his briefcase, and he runs out the door. He runs out the door and he runs to his car. So he runs outside, outside. He was inside. Now he's outside. He runs outside. And then Dan gets in his car. He gets in his car, puts the key in, and he tries to start the car. But all he hears is, it won't start. Yeah, the car does not start. He tries and tries and tries. He tries again and again, but the car will not start. So, what is he going to do? He started at 8:10. He tried to start the car for, I think, about 10 minutes, but it wouldn't start. So finally, Dan gets out of his car. Okay, he gets out of his car and he's frustrated. He's pulling his hair out. He's frustrated. Why will the car not start? He's so angry and frustrated. Why will the car not start? He thinks to himself, I'm definitely going to be late. I am definitely going to be late. For sure, I am going to be late now. So then Dan has an idea. Dan has an idea. That's that light bulb. That's the idea. Dan thinks, I know. He says to himself, I'll take the bus. I'll take the bus. It's very simple. I'll take the bus. So Dan starts to run. He starts to run. Yeah, he starts to run. And he runs to the bus stop. There is the bus stop. Bus stop. He runs to the bus stop. And when he arrives at the bus stop, he waits for the bus. So there is Dan waiting for the bus. And he waits for 5 minutes. So he waits from 8:15 to 8:20. Now it's 8:20. And he waits for 5 minutes at the bus stop. And now it's 8:20. Oh, no bus. There's no bus. I wonder what the problem is. And then he waits another 5 minutes, but still the bus does not come. It's 8:25 now. Dan is confused. And that's that swirl. What's up? He's confused. Why hasn't the bus come yet? Where is the bus? I don't understand. Dan wonders. Then he starts to run again. He starts to run. He starts to run. And now he thinks, I'm going to run to my office. I'm going to run to work. But then he thinks, even if he runs the entire way to his office, it will take at least 2 hours. It will take a minimum of 2 hours, at least 2 hours. And there's no way he's going to make it there in time. It takes 2 hours to, if he runs to work, it will take 2 hours. So Dan takes out his phone and he calls a taxi. That's right. He calls a taxi. So Dan calls for a taxi on his phone. And in 5 minutes, 5 minutes, a taxi arrives. Now it's 8:30. So Dan gets in the taxi and the taxi driver drives. The taxi driver drives. And he drives Dan to the building where he works. So there is the building where he works. And it takes 30 minutes to drive from 8:30 until 9 o'clock. All right. Now remember, Dan starts work at 9 o'clock. And now he has to pay for the taxi. The taxi ride costs $50. $50. So Dan pays the taxi driver $50 for the taxi ride. He pays $50 for the taxi ride. Then Dan gets out of the taxi and he starts to run, or again, run. He starts to run to the building, to the front door of the building where he works. So he runs to the front door and he thinks, I'm late. He thinks he's late and he thinks the boss is going to be mad. So he runs to the front entrance of the building and he grabs the door handle. He runs to the front door and he grabs the handle of the door, the handle or the handle, maybe it's like this, and he tries to open the door. He tries to open the door. He shakes it, tries to open the door, but the door does not open. It doesn't open. The door doesn't open. So he tries again. It must open. I have to go to work. He tries and tries for 5 minutes. He tries to open the door. He bangs on the door. Bump, 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 bump. He tries to open the door, but the door won't open. And then Dan realizes the door is locked. The door is locked. Why is the door locked? Dan says. Why is the door locked? Dan wonders. He wonders, why is it locked? Why is it locked? So then Dan takes out his phone. He takes out his phone and he looks at his phone. He looks at his phone. And Dan is surprised. He's surprised. Surprised. Dan is surprised. All of a sudden, he knows why the door is locked. If the door is locked, it is Saturday. It's Saturday. And the office is closed on Saturday. He doesn't work on Saturday. What was he thinking? What was he thinking? It must be Saturday. And Dan does not work on Saturdays. He doesn't work on Saturday. It must be Saturday. So Dan thinks, what am I going to do now? He says, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I came all the way to work. I waited for the bus. I ran. I tried to drive my car. I took a taxi. And it's Saturday. It's Saturday. Oh, Dan feels embarrassed. He's embarrassed, embarrassed. When your face turns red, embarrassed. He's embarrassed. Now Dan feels so tired. He feels really tired, very, very tired. He is exhausted. He's exhausted. He sighs and he hangs his head low and he slowly walks away. He starts to walk. He's so tired. He's so embarrassed. He feels so stupid. He's going to walk back home. But Dan does not want to walk all the way home, right? It's a long way home. He does not want to walk the entire way back home. He doesn't want to. He's too tired. He's too tired. So he takes out his phone again and he calls for another taxi. He calls for another taxi. Yeah. And in 5 minutes, the new taxi arrives and Dan gets into the taxi and picks Dan up. And Dan, the taxi driver drives. The taxi driver drives and he drives Dan back to his house, back to his home. So it takes from 9:10 until 9:40 for Dan to get home. It takes 30 minutes and it costs another $50, another $50. So Dan pays the driver for the taxi ride and uh, he gets out of the car and he's exhausted and he walks back into his house. There he is. He walks back and he's outside now. So when he gets inside his house, he takes off his tie. He takes off his tie. He takes it off. He takes off his belt. He takes off his shirt. He takes off his pants. He takes off his pants. What else does he take off? He takes off he then he's only wearing underwear. So he leaves his underwear on. He leaves his underwear on. Then he gets back into bed and he goes back to sleep. Now it's 10 o'clock and he goes back to bed and back to sleep. 2 hours for a mistake. Oh my goodness. The end. So that's the story of Dan being late for work. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever woken up and thought, oh no, I have to be at work? It's happened to me. It's a terrible feeling. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.